Okay, welcome everybody to another Our Hometown webinar on Block Editor Basics. Hope you enjoyed our slight little waiting music there. Probably got a few more people coming to trickle in, but I thought I'd get started with a few pleasantries. So let's move here first. Just want to let everybody know, if you don't mind going ahead and maybe finding the chat interface, the chat panel for Zoom, and make sure it's set to everybody. And so you guys can just say hi, tell us who you're with, maybe drop a little bit. Yeah, scale of 1 to 10 on your block editor confidence or your familiarity. And we can kind of tailor our approach, bringing in a couple of some more basic stuff to make sure no one's feeling left out. We want to have everybody feel included, even though we're showing some kind of more advanced techniques in the block editor. And let us know if you're having any trouble finding the chat. It's usually called participants or chat, something like that in the Zoom interface. And while you guys are doing that, let's see, our next slide, we'll just do a little summary of what we're going to talk about today. Hi, Christina. Welcome. 5 out of 10 is quite good. Sounds good. Excellent. But what we're going to be covering today is diving into the image block itself, because it's kind of going to be just the basic block that you're going to just use so much. And then we'll move into the gallery block, which basically is a collection of image blocks that allows you to do some fun layouts, some really quick, gallery-based layouts for multiple images and things like that. And then we'll look at a variation of the image block, which is called the cover block. And this is one where it allows you to use an image as a background for the block and then put other content on top of it. Welcome, Shelby. Excellent. Another 5 out of 10. Good to see. Good to see. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay. So let's just move along. I did want to run through very briefly, if you are more used to the classic editor, just basically what the image block equivalent is over there. So let's switch over to some live stuff here. Here's a article that I have. I've got one version in the classic editor open, and then I've also got a version in the block editor. And just so we can touch on kind of the normal way you would just add an image or add a piece of media to an article. So in this case, this is a normal thing. You kind of just click next to the paragraph where you want to add the image. Traditionally, we'll use the Add Media button up here. And this is going to just pop up the media library itself, right into the media library, so you can grab whatever media you'd like. And so let's been working with these headshots a little bit. So what I want to point out here, and this is in the context of the classic editor, when you select a block to insert into your classic editor article, one of the important things you want to pay attention to are these attachment display settings. So this is where you can go ahead and before you even insert the media item, you can change the alignment. You can have it just linked to the image itself or in a page, or often you want to add a custom URL, especially if this is maybe an ad content, or if in this case the headshot links off to an actual bio page for an author. You can specify that right here. And then there's also the three predefined sizes. So 150 by 150, 3 by 3, and 768 by 768. Just for this, as you recall, I selected just at the beginning of the paragraph to put this in. So I'm going to leave this on right alignment and medium size. And this is also where if we wanted to go ahead and add a caption here, let's go ahead and name this guy Ryan Cost Saver. And then we can just insert that into the post. And as you see, I had selected right here at the beginning of the paragraph, right alignment, and the caption. Everything comes through just like that. no problem. This is kind of like the simplest way that this works. Where you start running into the limitations is, okay, now what? If, let's say, you wanted to move this media item down to the subsequent paragraph, you can't do it. There's no there's no dragging, there's no nothing. You can select it, you can do whatever, but it's kind of just stuck wherever it is. The only way of moving this is actually to do a actually just a second here. I forgot to turn on my cursor highlighting. There we go. I hope that's a little bit more helpful. So what I'm doing here is I'm just selecting this and I'm going to just cut it. So your normal Control X oops, need to get, and actually this is an interesting issue. If you do that, it's not going to grab the caption as well. So you see already see the limitations here. However, once this is in here, it still has right alignment, center. There we go. Now it's right alignment. So you can see you got to fiddle around with it a little bit. We don't have the caption anymore. So in order to do that, you actually have to click and edit the image again. And this is where we can put the other spot where you can put this. And once again, this also gives you those same alignment and size and linking things. So if you don't select those when you first insert the image, you can always come back and do that here. Okay. So, and then that would, we can just update that and get it back over to the right. And so you can see you can achieve this, but that took me 4 steps to move it, and I had to redo things. So this is just to highlight some of the differences and kind of where you may have been dealing with about as much as you could do with images using the classic editor. So let's repeat this right here in the block editor. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm just going to select this paragraph and I'm going to come up to our little plus button here, which is where you add all of the different block types that you might want. You've got most used or my most recent ones, but if you scroll down, you can find all the ones that are related to media. So in this case, I want to insert an image. And in this case, it doesn't immediately open up the media library. And the other thing it does is it inserted this block below the block I had selected. So first off, let's just go ahead and now we can open up the media library just like we did before. And I'll select our image. And one thing I want to point out over here in the bottom right, there are no attachment selections here. This all gets handled in the block settings itself instead. Um, Let me get this guy over here. So we'll do the select here. So we're not doing any sizings or anything. We're just selecting it and popping it into the image block. And then here, now we'll start getting into the fun. So let me come back to my reference here. So we just looked real quickly at the classic editor, how you add, and some of the management of the display options. Let's move to our next slide, where in this case you saw I added the image block and we get the little picker here that allows you to either upload directly, go to the media library, insert from URL. You can do this in the library itself, but this gives you direct access to those guys. Okay, and then once we have the block added via the plus icon, we'll now just kind of go through some of the settings that are available on the right-hand side when you have a block chosen. So let's pop back over to our live demo here. I'm going to select this young man's picture. I'm going to close the block browser because we don't really need that. It'll give us some more space. So a couple of things. We'll just start at the top. You've got styles, which in this case is basically you can just round it or leave it default. The more fun parts here are when you get into aspect ratios. So this initial one is it's not completely square, but so if we can make it square, it'll bring it out just a little bit. Standard. This is going to crop the top and the bottom a little bit there to keep it in the format. Portrait is going to crop the left and the right and actually zoom in a little bit height-wise. 3:2. All these are pretty standard ones you want to use. Things like that, depending on what you're looking for. Even a wide one here. And it's basically just doing this all with the center of the image being handled. Even a tall one here, so you get your mobile version as well. And we'll just go back to original for now. And these are all listed here. And then our next one would be, okay, so we have a couple of interesting things that happen when you are using a setting other than the original. So as we saw with the original, it would just kind of be there. And then if we get one of these ones where we know it's kind of cropping it around and everything, the next thing I wanted to point out is on any aspect ratios other than original, you will get the option for the scaling property. So on cover versus contain, let's see, let's get one that's a little more where you can see this better. Here we go. So this is a widescreen one. And if you have contain, even though the container goes all the way across, you can even see the uh, the caption is still left as justified. Contain will basically contain the whole image within the 16 by 9 block, or cover setting will basically zoom in and basically fill the block with the appropriate zoom in on that. Okay. So the image, so cover, just to restate, the cover will scale the image larger into the space. So you basically lose the content. It zooms in on the center part of the image, and then contain is basically going to bring the whole image size down so that it fits within that block container. And this all depends on the aspect ratio too, on how this is going to work. So a cover here. And then since this is already, and yeah, you can see the difference here. A cover is going to extend all the way down to the 16 by 9. And then the contain is basically going to leave space above and below in the container and just fill the width with that. So it depends on if it's a square, if it's wider versus taller, and some things like that. But basically, these two scale options will affect how the image fills the image block. Okay. And this is basically a little bit here. Oh yes, you can also work with the specifying specific height and width options. So let's take a look at how this works. I'm going to go back and just set this back to original. And if you leave one or the other at auto, the aspect ratio will be maintained. So since this is the original aspect ratio, if I just set 300 in here, the width is going to be set to 300 and the aspect ratio will remain the same, since auto is just being defined by the aspect ratio. We're not giving it a specific value. I can do the same thing with the height and leave the width at auto. And in that case, or let's actually do a bigger one here. So it's 600 height, and then the width just fills out to maintain the original aspect ratio. Okay. Now, if this wasn't a headshot and you didn't mind, let's say some deformation, like let's say this was more of an abstract graphic or a pattern or something like that, you can actually specify both values for width and height, and this will override everything else. So if I said, just let's make this 50 pixels wide, and let's do the height of 100. Actually, that's still maintaining the that's what it is. Okay. It also needs to be set as covered as the cover scale. If it does contain, it's just going to automatically shrink it down to fit into whatever this size is. But if you leave this on cover, you see how you can really play with this a little bit. Make it 80 by 200 or something like that. Something like that, where you see kind of how it's cropping off the left and the right as the center, still using the cover scaling, but then you can specify some really specific heights and widths to get something that's it's not exactly cropping the image in the traditional sense, but it is giving you that effect overall. Let's add this as a center, by the way, just so it looks that way. So these are some of the ways of handling the different ways of sizing directly here in the settings panel. What I haven't mentioned is you may notice there's these little circles at the to the left and right and the bottom, and these are actual gives you direct access to basically these specific width and height settings directly in the content area. So you notice if I stretch this out, it has changed the width to 184 and leaving the height as auto, but it's still giving me this aspect ratio that I had done before. Okay, which can be quite fun. Let's see. If we wanted to just get rid of all of this, you can delete. And actually, if we go to auto, it's now kind of stuck in this new version, which is kind of cool. But if we wanted to get back to the original, let's actually go take a quick peek here. Go check in the media library. Yep, so we're still using the same one. Okay. Want to go to original, go to auto. There we go. Okay. And so now we're back to just using the standard ones without any of the specified sizes over here. Okay.
Hey
Um,
Chris, I got a question for you.
Absolutely.
That was really interesting. I just noticed the replace option. I've never thought about this, but it looks like you could, in theory, like set up a size that you like for your photos and then just duplicate it and replace it with other people if you want it like
With other
all.
people, or I haven't touched on this per se because we're kind of talking about just the relative size of the image in the container. But I did want to point out, let's see, let me come back over here and do I have a toolbar one? Well, nonetheless, we'll look at it at here because you can also do an actual crop of the image itself, which is separate from the resizing. And so this actually brings up an interesting point. So if you do go in and click the crop button here, oh my, that's awfully small. The other thing I can do here is sometimes if you change enough stuff, here we go. Now we're back to original. Okay. And then if we come into, I'm not sure why the crop is going down that small.
Yeah, that's interesting. Probably, I was wondering if it was to do with the cover or the container, but
It may.
you went back to the
But
original.
we can actually one of the things that's cool about this is if you just because we're basically in the image block, and if you just replace with let's just go grab another headshot here. We'll select that. No. Yeah, okay. So basically what you'll run into sometimes with these image blocks is the more you change things, the further away you get from the original. So if you do find yourself backed into a corner a little bit where something's not behaving the way you'd like, it's just pretty easy to delete this guy. And we'll just add the image back in. And what that allows you to do is it basically gives you all the fresh settings in here that are all back to where they should be. And now if I click on the crop, you can see it's giving us what we need. And just to touch on how the crop works, it's going to give you this grid, and you use the scroll wheel to zoom in, and then you can drag to keep the focal point in in the block you want, and you can do all kinds of stuff here. But what I wanted to point out is once you apply this, this is going to actually create a copy of this image with the new crop. Same, and still got the same aspect ratio, but now we're zoomed in. And what I wanted to show, if you hit replace here and we go back to the media library, look at what we've got. We've got the headshot with an edited thing added to the file name. So here's the original. And then when I did that crop, it creates a new copy. So it's non-destructive in the way that it actually just creates a new copy. So if you wanted to say, okay, that's great, but I want the original back, you can just select the original back and it will put it in there. Or vice versa. You can go back and grab the cropped version that you created and add that to this. And the point about the cropped version is once it's cropped, and now that is the original aspect ratio and the original size and stuff like that. So you can still go through here and change these aspect ratios, and it will work with however the crop was working, those kind of things. So you can combine the aspect ratio, auto settings, the way the scaling is working, and even using the built-in crop to kind of really hone down how you want the image to be displayed in the content area. Okay, let me back over here. Yeah. Ah, yes. And then the other, and we had just started to touch on these, but you can also just resize these here. And that's going to maintain, you see the crop is maintained, the aspect ratio is maintained. This is just basically bringing down the overall size of the image. No more cropping, it's not removing anything. So that's one of the reasons it's beneficial to have that second copy made, because then when you're interacting with it, it's taking just that section of the image that was cropped out, and that's now your new quote unquote original image that you can then continue editing and do whatever you need with. And then, but also knowing that the original version is still in the library if you wanted to either roll yourself back because you don't like what's going on with the design, or if you want to just maybe create it for a second use. Okay. And that was the note here is even if you do any manual dragging with any of those handles, the aspect ratio will still govern the the width to height ratio, although you are obviously specifying those in the content area. Touched on image cropping. Let's make sure. Yep, we've touched on that real quick. And we touched a little bit about how the cover versus contain handles things, and we've gone through those. Okay, cool. So before we move on to the gallery block, let's just take a couple of more looks through here. There's not a lot of styling to be done here. It's basically you can control the sizing, a little bit layout. You can manage the caption, things like that. I'll touch upon the other items that are here in the floating toolbar. So this was the alignment here, so we can align everything to the middle. This little triangle guy is a filter, which in this case, what it allows you to do is basically if you just use this little black and white one here, and I select that, it basically just changes this to a grayscale image. If you have a whole bunch of different lighting and all kinds of different colors and all this kind of thing, if you just wanted to kind of standardize and have everybody just have a classic black and white studio headshot, you can do that simply by adding this duotone filter directly from the floating toolbar. Okay. And of course, there's some other really horrendous ones if you were looking for a special effect, something like that. You can even go in and actually select the colors specifically if you wanted, some other things like that. So you can kind of do some funky things. Once again, this would work maybe better for logos and things like that. But I found that if you just want to do a quick black and white version of a color image, this is a really easy way to do it. I'll go ahead and finish covering what's here in the floating toolbar since we've been talking about a few things. This link button, this will basically allow you to add an URL to the image if you wanted to click out somewhere else, or you can link it to the file itself. And on a lot of our sites, what this will do is open up the image in a light box. It depends on how it's set up, and there's even like a light box effect here. This will depend on your particular set up on the platform, but some these are fairly representative of what's there. Um, Moving across, we already talked about the crop. Now, this next one is add text over image. So I'm going to hold off on that for a little bit and just talk about, first off, we've got our caption that you can toggle on and off and then manually add it. But this other one here of add text over image is going to do something fun, and it's going to bring us into another block. So I'll go ahead and touch on it now, and we'll swing back around and look at, pardon me, we'll look at a bit more of the details. But if you click the add text over image icon, what this is going to do is it's going to convert the image block into a cover block using the previously selected image as the background. And so we will go through the cover block and actually I'll just skip ahead and we'll go ahead and look at some of the cover block stuff here. I've got that set up. So we'll come back to the gallery. Um, but yeah, we can take a look at the cover block. So what I just did here is I transformed an image block. Whoops. I transformed the image block into a cover block via the toolbar. So that's what I did there. But I also wanted to show you, of course, that you can add these right in here. I'm going to just type cover. And when you add a cover, you get a very similar prompt box as you did when you add an image, where you can either upload, you can go to the media library. In this case, you could use the featured image if we had a featured image, which actually we do. It'll use this featured image for the article itself if you wanted to do that. But and also the cover block also allows you to just set without no image at all and just have a background color on your cover. So I'm going to do that and just select gray. And basically what you're going to see here is we've got the gray background, and then we have a paragraph tag that's in here. Let me bring open the list view here so you can see here's the cover, and it's just got a paragraph inside of that. And also, if we select the cover at any time, if you wanted to, instead of using the background color as an image, you can also just select Add Media. And I'll find something a little more abstract for this one. Yeah, here we go. And see, that will just add this as the background image. Okay. Select a color. Yep. Okay, moving to the next things. You can add text and any other content. This is one of the things that makes this stand out as like an image block enhanced, because as you can see here, we've already got a paragraph block in here, but we can also add other blocks. So let's see, if we wanted to add, let's say, a heading block, you can add a heading block. This is a heading. Okay, and then, oh, you can add other blocks. And in this case, since you can add other blocks, we can add another image block. So let's actually go grab, now we're getting fun here. So let's take this same headshot image here. And now we've got the headshot and the heading over the abstract background. Kind of fun. I'm going to remove this just for a moment so you can see some of the other settings that are available over here. So you've got some settings for a fixed background. Okay, what the fixed background is going to do is this image is going to stay static, and when you scroll, it stays static in the background. It's a little blurry with this particular image. Let's try another one. Let's just use one of these logos. So here you can see it even better here. See how it's a fixed background, so the entire cover just scrolls over that. So if you had a bunch of stuff in here that was related, you can scroll through that very easily. And that's the fixed background selection. Now, the repeated background is cool, but it kind of requires using a smaller image so that it actually repeats properly. It's kind of like um, a a flower pattern or something like that. So let me find something. Yeah, here we go. Here's like a little image. This is an acorn. It's basically 87 by 74 pixels. So if we select that and with repeated background on, you can see how it works. It's going to basically just create a wallpaper of the repeated background that's there. Okay, it's kind of cool. And then those are basically what you can do in here. Oh, actually, let's go back one more step. Let's go back to a full image here. Whoops. And I want to show you what the focal point does. So as you see, we're going to turn off repeated background. And what we can do is drag, there's a little circle in here that allows you to focus where things are going to happen. So in this case, if this was on well, it doesn't work on fixed background, it's just on these guys. But if we were to, let's say, make these a little bigger, stuff like that, it's going to keep all of this in here. Let's actually just take a quick look at the preview. It's a little hard to tell exactly how it's going to behave until you get it in the preview. Basically, it's just how it scales with the page size and how it interacts with other content on the page. So if I bring this down, you can see the focal point up here is that's where it's basically sizing from. So that's where that can be very helpful. Even on something that's not super big, the focal point means that when it resizes based upon where it's placed, or if it's on mobile or something like that, it's gonna use that focal point as basically the origin and always keep that as quote unquote the focal point, regardless of how the rest of the image might scale. Okay. And just to kind of show, we can also add basically any blocks in here that you might want to add. Separators are good. You can even add like other groups, other images. Let's say we want to add, we'll add a headshot back into this. And this is one of those where actually coming in here and just redoing the sizing manually, and we'll align it to the right. This kind of thing is kind of fun like that. One of the other things about the cover, this is over here. You've got the alignment of the cover itself. So actually, if we put this to the right, you can see that the cover acts. Once I mentioned that this is basically an enhanced variant of an image. So in the same way that you can set an image to be aligned to the right or the left, the text will reflow around it just like it does before. This allows some really cool things to happen as well. There's the duotone is here as well, but I did want to point out this is separate from the focal point. So the focal point is just kind of controlling the placement here. But this one is kind of giving you the origin of where anything that's inside the cover is going to kind of be laid out from. So if I just click to the top, you see the heading and the picture are going to start at the top. We can have them over at the bottom left, top left, these kind of things. So this can be very interesting because it basically sets the point from which anything that you add to the cover will be kind of like aligned. It's like an item alignment in the same way that you might have a text alignment or an image alignment. This is basically aligning the contents of the cover block. So that's where these can be helpful, especially if you're doing something like, and we haven't touched on this quite yet, but in the styles for the cover, you can actually set a height for it. And as you see, it kind of grows with the focal point still being at the top of the lighthouse. Let me bring this back to a full center so we can see this a little better, or just take it out of alignment there. So when you change the height, this is just this minimum height, you can see it's still focusing the zooming from right in here. Okay. And the other thing is, like, let's say you just wanted to add, let's say, a spacer. You can actually add a spacer. And this doesn't add anything to the it's just a basically an empty layout thing. So you could technically add that in here to push fake Ryan's headshot down, and then we could bring this back up. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it's at the max now, and we've got this in here, so that's filling up the gap. Bring him up here. So these are just some interesting ways of being able to work with this. And let's see. Oh, somebody disappeared there. Okay, well, that's all right. Let's go grab another picture. Come on back in. There we go. And once again, you can kind of do these guys. You've got alignments on this element as well, even though it's being laid out kind of from top to bottom. The spacer allows you to kind of do some stuff. So this allows you to basically create kind of a canvas with the cover, and then you can put as much stuff in here as you want. One of the things we touched on in navigating the block editor is the way that you can actually use the list view to kind of manage where your your content lives. So let's see, there's a table down here. Yeah, there's a table. You can actually just grab the table and we can just put it right inside the cover, just like that. And so now you have a cover over there. I'm going to change the image alignment to go back to center, so that'll put the table below it. But yeah, you can even just add all kinds of stuff in here. Now, one of the things you're probably noticing is that none of this is readable. Why is that? Well, what we haven't addressed yet is we come back to the cover. There's we haven't touched on the styles yet outside of just a little bit of the height here. But this is where you can change the overlay color and the opacity. By default, it adds just like a half gray. But if we crank this all the way up, you can see basically we go to all solid. This is if we had just used a gray background color or something like that. And so this is where you can kind of just have a hint of the image if you'd like, and still have everything else going on. This background image is way too lively. Um, so actually, let's go and replace this with that more abstract paper image. And now you can see goes from no overlay all the way up, and you can still get the texture of the background, but it's not impeding the reading of the text. And obviously, you can go in and change these text colors and things like that. And then if you wanted, you can actually, once again, as with the duotone and some other things, you can go in here and we can alter this color here. As you notice, as soon as I started changing to a darker color, all the text colors changed. So if I'm up here in white, they're black. And if you drop down into a darker one, it'll change it to white automatically. That's another feature of the cover block. It tries to help with the keeping the reading contrast up. The other thing you can do instead of using a solid color is you can actually use a gradient for these too, which can be kind of fun. And then once again, you can click on these individual tabs. And there we go. Yeah, that's kind of fun. And so you can do a bunch of these things like this. Shelby, absolutely. We are recording this, and I'm gonna do a quick little sweetener, put an intro on it and stuff, and we hope to have that up to YouTube a little later today, we're hoping. Um, let's see. Okay, cool. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll also send out some of the relative blog posts and things like that, because this is actually the blog post that I'm referring to here. So all of the stuff that's in the slide deck is basically just brought in from this blog post that I published a little while ago. It goes over the image block, gallery block stuff, and right now we're kind of in the weeds here with the cover block right here. Okay. So this is kind of some of the fun things that we can do with the cover block. I'm going to do a quick time check. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pivot back towards the gallery and talk a little bit about the differences between galleries and something like a columns block or a grids block. Okay. And yes, I've even got one here. So actually, this is kind of cool, but we'll get here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all of this so I can start this from scratch. And we're just going to build a little kind of staff directory here so that we can see some of this stuff in action. So what I'm going to do is let's just grab a gallery. And this will bring up the media library. And this is not like using a pre-created gallery or any next gen or anything like that. Basically, all you want to do here is I'm going to click on the first headshot. I'm going to shift click. And you see how the little check mark stays next to all the ones that have been selected. And then if you want one, this is similar to just doing normal clicking. But if you do a controller command click, you can click on one discontiguous from the other. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's just do this. And down here at the bottom, we just have create a gallery. So I've got 7 items here, and we'll just create a gallery. We don't have to name it or anything. It's none of that. It basically just you can add captions at this point if you want. You can reorder them if you want, but a lot of those things can be done once it's actually in the content area. So let's just go ahead and select this. Okay. And so by default, let's select the gallery block itself and take a look over here in the settings. So by default, it's giving us a 3-column layout. And then since we've got an odd number of images, the last one is just taking up the whole width of the block, which can be cool, but not always. And the other thing is if we even drag him up to the top, he's going to just get put into the small group and only the last one is going to be featured. So this is one of the limitations of the gallery is it really doesn't let you do it unless you if you I mean if we only had 6, it would be great. Or if you really like this highlight, that's great too. But if you, I'll show you how it happens. If you just address these, if I change it to 4 columns and there's only 3, you can see how it keeps them a little bigger and adds a little bit of space. So if you're looking for something that's just this easy and this slick, the gallery is the way to go. I mean, you can do your, you select these and you can do your caption right here. And one of the cool things, I know this may be a little hard to see. Let me do it on this one. When I click the caption button, you'll notice that it adds a shadow and a blur beneath the caption. So this will be Mary Pierce or whatever we want. And so you can see there's just a little bit of an effect placed behind. And this is only available in the gallery images, this little bit. Normally, if it's just a normal image block, just going to add one real quick here. And let's just say, let me make sure there's a caption available here. You can add that right there in the library. Okay. So here it is with the caption, and as you see, the caption is just kind of tailed on at the end, not as cool as this, you know. So if you just take that off, so a normal image block, the caption is always going to be like tagged down to the bottom. In a gallery block, anytime you do a caption, it's actually going to be included as an overlay. Now, this isn't a cover block. This is just a very specific image block implementation when the image is inside these gallery things. If I just drag this guy out down here and we select him now, you can see, oh, actually, as soon as I dragged it out of the gallery block, you can see the caption is now just by the default of the old caption style. If I drag him back in, you can see it gives the caption with the overlay. So I wanted to point that out. So the gallery is very slick and it's very turnkey. And if what you're looking for is just to get like a grid of images and just have it kind of fill up the space, this is the perfect way to go. However, let's say we wanted to have the top feature. This guy's not actually in the gallery. But let's say we wanted to do something different here. We would need to kind of move beyond the gallery and move into something we touched on in one of our previous webinars, and that is using grids. to kind of create some of these things. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this gallery block, going to come into the three dots menu and hit duplicate. So it's still there with all the images. But what I want to do is select the gallery, and I'm going to click this little guy, or if you come down over here, yeah, no, it's right here. So this icon on the far left is the one that allows you to transform certain blocks into other types of blocks. So in this case, I just want to create a group out of these because a group is what allows you to use rows, columns, and grids quite easily. So I'm just going to create a group. Nothing has really changed. Um, I am going to put a spacer between these so it's a little easier to see which one I'm working on. Okay, so I'm working on this bottom one here. And all I did was take the gallery and put it in a group. And as you can see, the gallery is still in the group. So this is still behaving exactly as if it were a gallery. But what I can do now is I can select all of these images, drag them out of the gallery, but still in the group. Okay. And now this is just going to be a big list of images. And these are image blocks. You see where the captions lie and stuff like that. But over here in the settings for the group, you can switch this between rows, stacks, and in this case, grids. So let's click the grid button and see what happens. Look at that. Okay. So one thing you will notice is these are not using the kind of special image blocks that the gallery was using that had the caption overlaid. These are just your standard image blocks. But what's cool about this is that a grid allows you to have other types of blocks other than just its image blocks uh, contained in it. So we can do some really fun stuff here. But first off, let's just come back up to the grid and see how it differs. The first thing you'll notice, if I click on the gallery, block itself, you can basically just select the number of columns. That's all you do. You can have some image cropping on there if it's needed, but basically you can only just select the number of columns. In the grid, you can select the minimum width of a column or select the number of columns. And what's cool about this latter one is it allows it to dynamically move these around. So let's actually just make this kind of big here. Actually, no, even better, even better. Let's make them small. So real small, and then now let's take a look at what happens if we preview this guy. Just so you can see how it behaves differently when it gets resized. You can see how it responds differently. Okay, so yeah, here's this guy here. So what I want you to notice is as I move this around, see what happens? It's actually changing to just have however many columns are needed. It's switching from 4 to 3, and then it'll looks like we'll get and yeah, and then if we get all the way down to 2, right? Let me see, let's see, all the way down. No, that looks like about because I set the minimum of eight rims, it'll only go down so far. Okay. So that's a little different from the way the gallery is also working is as you see the rows don't or the columns don't change. It's pretty much static. It's got 4 and 4 and then the last one's just getting 3. But this one if you actually see the number of columns change based upon the overall width that's available there. So that's one thing that can make the grid a bit more fun as well. Now, a couple of other things that you can do here, and this touches on the uh, the cover. Since these are actual images now, we can transform these images to covers or even a group. Now, why would you want to make this a group? I just made this first image a group. And what this allows you to do is because the group is a layout box, it gives you the option to work within the grid. So if we want this to span more than one column, watch what happens. See, now it's spanning two columns, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now it's going across every column, and now you have a row of thumbnails beneath a big feature. So if you had like your big editor wanted his ego picture, you could have that, and then you have all your other ones that would live below it. And all of this is being managed over here. Sorry, is being managed right here with the minimum column width. So you can this kind of changes the size of the individual cells, and then because we put this image in a group, we can say, hey, we want this to always span more cells than anything else. You could even set this to like, a bunch like 10 or something. So even if it doesn't have, even if there aren't that many columns, it will basically just span everything so that it always has its own row, and then all the rest of them will be filled in based upon the this minimum column width size. You can kind of play around depending on how many images you have. So let's take a quick peek at what that looks like in the preview. And I'm going to touch back on a couple things about why you may want to do some manual resizing in some of these cases. So as you see, big guy here, he covers the entire width, and then these guys all flow beneath. And then if I resize this, he's going to stay always at the top. He's still resizing to fit the container, and then everything else below him is reflowing into the different numbers of columns based upon how much space there is. Okay, can be very cool. However, the other thing we can do here is come back to this one, and this is where setting a width defined specifically can be very helpful. Like, let's just say we want this to be him to be 450 pixels wide. And then I'm also going to set him to center. What's interesting about this is he's spanning all of the columns and then is being centered within that span. So regardless of, he's just pretty much ignoring all of the columns he's a part of, just saying, this is my space. And then you can basically just do a manual resize, give him a specific alignment, and then you can check out. Let's go back to the preview so you can see how this looks. Basically, instead of him filling up that whole space, pardon me, he's going to be restricted to the size we allotted to him, but he's still going to be having the team members below. And then as we change the size, he's going to stick there. No problem. He's got plenty of space, but then he still scrolls down, and it still has the dynamic columns going by. So this is a one way of building a really cool and quick responsive kind of staff directory, or almost even a product gallery. If this was some kind of big product and you wanted to have different versions or different views of a product or something like that, you can do tons of different things with this, or have a big restaurant logo and then a bunch of dishes down here, stuff like that. Let's see. Let me go back over here to my reference and make sure I'm catching everything. Yeah, we touched on the alignment, content position. Yeah, let me touch on the alignment one more time, um, because let's just imagine that we have a bunch of actually let's even do this. I haven't shown this yet, but we can just copy this guy right here. So this, I'm copying the grid level. So this is going to copy everything that's in the grid items, so all the images and everything. I'm just going to come in here and hit copy. Then I'm going to go back over to another block editor, and we'll just scroll down here a little bit to give it some space. And now I can paste it. So we can drop this in immediately. Now, what I did want to show here is, because this is, we're in the grid, we're in the cover. Ah, that's right. So just to make this a little more crazy, you can actually take this entire grid and wrap it in a cover block. So if we do that, it's going to give us the default gray color, kind of sets it apart pretty nicely. But what I wanted to demo here is now you can align the entire thing to one side or the other. Check that out. And as you see, because it has less space to work with, it's defaulted to just the two columns at a time. And it flows just like any other kind of image block would. Let's take a quick peek at that in a preview for this one. I'll scroll down past the other demo content that was at the top, just so we can take a quick peek at how even something as complicated as like a staff directory grid can then be encapsulated in another block, in this case, the cover block. And now you have this entire cover block that just flows down right next to the text content. So that's pretty much where you can take all the way, go through, make something really sophisticated, and still be able to kind of copy and paste it and reuse it in a place where, hey, we want it to be narrow here because it's part of a text um, a thing, or back over here if it was just going to be on its own staff directory page. And both of these, I didn't change anything. I just copied the entire grid over to the other article, set its alignment to or added it to the cover so that I had access to the alignment options, and then just aligned it to the right, and everything flows just around there. Um, so let me, and actually I'll even show a quick little demo here. So basically when I did that, when you selected the grid and you select the transform, all that did was basically just create a cover, put the grid inside of it, and then the cover by default just has a light gray overlay capacity or background that's on there that you can then go and immediately start going and making your cool gradients and any of that kind of stuff, depending on what you might be looking for the design. So this is one where basically we're using the image blocks that we've been talking about, so you can still have all the access to the image block stuff. We've been talking about the gallery block and how it can get you to a certain degree very quickly. And then we have switched to focusing on using the grid block instead of the gallery, getting us to that point. But then also the grid block allows us to then transform, contain, and do some of the other sophisticated stuff we can do with cover blocks and groups and other things, basically right in here uh, with these layouts here in a completely different context. But it was just copy paste, do a couple of things. As I said, add the cover block, adjust the color, give it an alignment, and with those three steps, I was able to easily go from this kind of a staff directory look to something more along these lines. And you can imagine, depending on what the topic of the conversation is, this could be any kind of thing. This could be for demo purposes. Here's one big block overview, and then each of these pictures is maybe a zoomed in block of an option or something like that. So there's tons of these different ways of doing this. I'm gonna see if I can see. Yeah. Let me take a quick pause because we're pushing right at our hour. And is there anything I can touch on real quick that I've talked about? Maybe something I didn't talk about. Just wanted to make sure. Pre I think I have actually gone through everything here. I didn't go full restaurant ham here, but with the headshots, it's about the same. Um, and yeah, we did cropping, image. Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah, so either from my fellow panelists or if I see anything in chat, let's just open it up to any questions or comments while we're sitting here right at the end before we sign off. Okay. Well, I will basically we'll have an edit of this. Basically, we've recorded this. We'll run it through AI, so that'll give us all the cool chapters and the timestamps and everything. So once I upload this to YouTube, you'll be able to click directly to whichever portion that you want to watch again, or if you had to jump away or miss or anything like that. And we'll be sending that out later this afternoon. So if there's not anything else, I will just wish everyone a wonderful afternoon. a wonderful weekend. I hope the weather's holding up for most of us. And I hope you join us next time and be on the lookout for some communication for us following up with the recording and maybe a blog post or two for reference. And always, anytime you want to reach back out to us, I didn't put a slide in for reaching out, but ops at ourhometown.com, your normal question ticket creation thing. If you run into anything and you got an idea and you get something started with the block editor and you run into something you just don't get, you can send us a link to the story you're working on, send us a screenshot, or if there's just something that doesn't quite match up with the way it was explained, we can clarify and all those kind of things. So if you run into anything, please reach out to our customer support at ops at our-hometown.com, and we will be more than happy to assist you in coming up with the craziest layout that you might want. But for now, I want to thank everybody for being here, and I'll thank you, Shelby, and I'll play us a little bit of outro music, and thank you, everybody.